Welcome to episode 20 of All the Stitches. This is a channel about quilting, knitting, needlework of all kinds, and whatever other crafty thing I might be up to. My name is Colleen, and I'm coming to you from the Lakes region of New Hampshire in the United States. Today's show is mostly finishes. I have, I think, one work in progress or a couple that aren't quite finished, but it's mostly about things that I have finished. One piece of administrative business I wanted to mention was I've spent a lot of time with editing with these videos, and that's just the nature of the game, but I've also spent a lot of time putting titles on the bottom of the screen. I've thought better of that, and I'm going to do fewer titles, but instead, when you are watching on YouTube and there's a down arrow under the video screen, click on that. That's the description box for each episode, and I'll put the details in the description box, which is just going to make my life so much easier. I'll probably have a few titles here and there, but everything you'll need to know will be in the description box. I have to apologize. There's pollen in the air, and I'm a little bit hoarse today. Today I'm going to show you quilting, knitting, counter cross stitch, and sewing. Not in that order, but there you have it. So first of all, something quick, I'm going to show you my sewing project, and that is this. Is it the cutest thing? This little Ellie the elephant is what I'm calling her. And it is a gift, and I'm not really going to get into any details on it, why I made it or who it's for. But I just thought it was an adorable little gift, a little baby gift or a child's gift. I will put the pattern in the description box because I forgot to look it up. But the little ears have batting in them to make them flappy. And I think it's adorable. These things are a lot of work, but they're so fun. They take on a little personality all their own. That's my sewing project. I'm going to move on to a quick knitting segment because I'm sitting here with my project on. I finished my Felix Pullover. I have to pull it up a little. All these sweaters are always kind of big under the arms, all the yoke sweaters. But here's my Felix Pullover, all done. My chair makes a lot of noise. I'll put in a picture so you can see it better. And I love the pattern. I love the yarn. I've spoken about it before. It's Queensland Kathmandu and has these yarn over increases for the raglan sleeves. It is a little big under the arm, and I'm not sure why, if I could have gone with a smaller size. I also, when I blocked it, the arm stretched out quite a bit, and I ended up having to take the cuffs out and take about an inch or more off of the sleeves and start again with the cuffs. I didn't mind doing that because it just makes it so much more wearable and comfortable. But it's a very warm sweater. I thought with the pink I'd be wearing it this spring, but no way, it's too warm. It'll come out again in the cool weather. That's my knitting. I have another work in progress, another sweater that is on my Make 9 list, but I'm going to show you that next time. Okay, so on to my counter cross stitch. And I have a couple of completed projects, so I'm very excited. One I showed you last time, and it is the Lori Holt Stitch Card C, but now it is fully finished. Last time I showed you just the stitched piece. So it's all framed. Just as I was finishing this project, I saw a video on YouTube made by Elizabeth Can Stitch. She has a great floss tube and quilting video, and every once in a while she does these Friday night live demonstrations. So this one she did a couple of weeks ago was about finishing a small needlework piece like this. And it was exactly what I wanted to do with this, so it was really great. So what I did is I purchased the frame. It's an 8x8 frame. So what I did, following her instructions, I took a piece of foam core board, I covered it with this blue fabric, and it fits inside the frame. Then I took the needlework piece and I folded it around a piece of mat board, and on top of the mat board is a piece of cotton batting. Okay, so then I put the needlework down. Everything gets glued together, and I use, and she does too, I use this Aleene's acid-free tacky glue. It's really the only glue that I know of that can really work well with fabric, and it is acid-free, so it's not going to ruin the piece. I mean, you don't want to get it all over the front of it or anything, but it's not going to eat through the fabric. So then you can see that I just glued down the needlework on the board, and it just sits in there like a little shadow box. Well, I'm really pleased with this method, and Elizabeth Can Stitch has a great YouTube channel, and I would urge any needleworkers or quilters to take a look. So my other needlework is this one. You can see it all. It says, "I figure if a girl wants to be a legend, she should just go ahead and be one." It's supposedly a quote from Calamity Jane, who may not have been the best role model in the world, but I think that quote just says it all. So this was stitched on 16 count Aida. Here is the pattern by Tumbleweeds, which is a Little House Needleworks company. And I've ordered a custom size frame. Of course, it's a custom size. Nothing's ever standard. And this is also a gift. So again, I'm not going to tell you much about it. I'd like it to be a surprise. But I think it's a gift, a nice gift for little girls who may very well become legends in a good way. Now on to my quilting. I've been busy with quilting most recently, and I had some quilts in to be machine quilted, and I just got them back just a couple of days ago. So they're not all bound, but I will show them to you. But this one I did finish. You can see it right behind me, so I'll show you that one first. I spoke about this one already. This is the from the Tour Ireland book by Pat Sloan. And once again, I'll tell you, I made the sheep out of wool, and I did the wool applique by hand. I changed the houses to look more like Irish cottages and less like beach houses. So the houses are wool also, and then the stars are wool. You know, this can't be easy. I'm thinking about weathermen and women who have to point, and how do you know where your finger's going? I think you have to get used to that. But anyway, now I have great respect for them. So here is my little Pat Sloan Irish Tour Ireland quilt. I hand quilted it, and it is a finish. I'm going to show you something. It's not a finish, but you could kind of call it a finish because, as I've mentioned before, I talked about it more in episode 19, which was the Spring Fling episode. I spoke about the Patches of Blue sampler quilt that I'm making, and I'm doing it over a period of a year, so every block is broken down throughout the year. And this is a Laundry Basket Quilts pattern. Edja Sitar is the designer, and it was her 2018 block of the month from her blog. So I finished the April block, and it is this. Don't you love a pine tree block? So now I have 4 installments done of that quilt. I have a long way to go, believe me, and a lot of the installments are much more difficult than the ones I've done so far. Now, what I need to do, the quilts I want to show you are larger, and I'd like to just show them to you rather than insert photos. So I'm just going to move my setup so I can show you the quilts. Okay, so here are the quilts I wanted to show you. The first is a baby quilt, And I've shown you a piece of this one before, but it is all done. It's quilted and it's all bound. And it is a gift. And here it is up close. I wanted to put little sheep in it. And that's what I did. In the back is more sheep. And you can see it's just a square of fabric with borders around it. It makes for kind of a nice simple quilt. I know the lighting's not great here, but it's kind of the best I can do. So hopefully you can see enough. Here is a quilt that it's not bound yet, but it is finished. Oops. I need a bigger room. You can see it's all circles. And I don't know if there's a name for it, but it's, I call it the hole of the moon. It just seems to remind me of the moon. But I just had it machine quilted. And she did a wonderful job. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but she just sort of emphasized the circles, and she did these custom quilting around the edges. Beautiful. Quilting by the Attic Cat in Effingham, New Hampshire. This was a pattern I saw years ago at a quilt show, and I bought the book and I bought the template to make the circles, and then I bought all the batik fabric to go with it. It sat around for a long time, and then we got quarantined a year ago and I went at it. In fact, I made so many circles, I didn't really know what size I was making or anything, so I just kept making the circles. So I had all this left over, so I have a nice wall hanging from it too. Same fabrics, same pattern, same quilting. But just need to bind them. Now it's time for what jumped into my cart. I know last time I showed you 3 new books, and I must be on a book kick or something because I found this one as well. This is the quilt. This is the book that my friends are doing. I spoke about it on episode 19 when I talked about the quilt, the block of the month that my friends are doing. It's the Cream and Sugar block of the month, and it's by It's So Emma Patterns. It is broken down so you can make a block each month, and that's what my friends are doing. 3 of them are using the neutrals like as shown, and it's really striking, I have to say. And one is doing blues and creams, and they're all beautiful. So I didn't want to take part in this, as I mentioned, because I was working on the Patches of Blue sampler instead. But every time I see their blocks every month, I just think, well, someday I think I need to make that quilt. Whether I do the creams, or I'm not sure. I sure like the way they look. And Lord knows I have enough neutral fabrics that I could use. So we'll see. But I just thought I'd grab this book while I could and see what might come about. I also meant to mention on my Patches of Blue blocks, my friend Barbara, who I've spoken about before, who's such a great knitter, she also has quilted for many years, though she's taken a long break from it. Well, somehow I think I've managed to inspire Barbara by showing her that Patches of Blue sampler, because she's dusted off her sewing machine and her quilting fabric and is starting to make those blocks as well. And she's making them in red, which is her favorite color. So I'm going to insert a photo or 2 that she sent me, and you can see how different they look, but they're absolutely beautiful. I think it's the kind of quilt you can do really in any color. They can be blue, they can be red, they could be green, they could be rainbow, they could be anything. But I really am enjoying seeing her red blocks. And now it's time for something old. If you watched episode 13, which was the early December crafting episode, I showed you this old crewel work that I did back in the 70s. It was a Paragon kit, and it's all crewel embroidery. Well, I already showed that to you, so I won't go on about that. But I wanted to show you another one as well. Around the same time, I made this one. It's sort of the same little town. It's not exactly, but this is the spring and summer version. And in fact, Paragon Corporation produced it in 1978, and they called it Part 2. So it must have been in this series. Now, I kept looking and looking thereafter to see if they came out with other seasons. Wouldn't it have been great to have a fall one? But I never found anything. It never came out. But I thought I'd show you this one. And the same as with the other one, I made this back in the 70s, and it has been bumped around, and it was stored in an attic after a while. And, crewel embroidery was not very cool after a while, after the 70s. And so when I kind of rediscovered it when I was moving, it was pretty dim and dusty and kind of attic smelly. So this and the winter scene, I took them apart, took them out of the frames, cleaned the frame up. The other frame, they both were framed, and the other frame had broken apart, and it just wasn't worth fixing. So I cleaned this just like I have with my other needlework. I've cleaned it in that restoration stuff that you can buy from the stitchery, and it soaks in there for 8 hours or more, and it comes out almost like new. So I was really pleased with the way this came out. I reframed it. What I'm doing is using the same frame and changing them out for the season. So I obviously did not I wasn't very fancy about framing, and I just left the back open. I can pull these tabs out and change the picture out with the season. So that is something old. I'm going to quit while I still have a voice, but I just wanted to tell you all, as I usually do, I hope all your stitches bring joy. Take care.